This is the Say What You Like Week 3 NFL podcast, and I want to welcome everyone out there to the latest edition of our weekly NFL show. Now, I'm recording solo here for Week 3, but that's all right because I got a lot on my mind going into this weekend's games. Now, I want to share my thoughts on whether or not the AFC West is going to have 3 teams that are going to make it into the playoffs at the end of the season. So stay tuned here, all you Raiders fans, all you Chiefs fans, Broncos fans, and you know what? Even you Chargers fans might want to listen out for this. Now, I also want to talk about the injuries that took place in Week 2, because we all know that impacts everybody's fantasy teams, everybody's lineups, and it even affects, believe it or not, some teams' playoffs hopes, the real teams out there too. Now, of course, I just gotta talk about that horrific 42-17 loss the Dallas Cowboys suffered this weekend at the hands of the Denver Broncos. So, let's just get the hard part out of the way right now. Let's talk a little bit about that ass-kicking the Denver Broncos gave my Cowboys this weekend. 42-17. It was an ugly one, guys. But look, if you're a Cowboys fan like me, there's not a big reason for concern just yet. Let's look into it a little bit closer. Yeah, they got their asses handed to them. We know that. But not very many teams can boast the defensive personnel that the Denver Broncos have on their roster. And the key to stopping that Cowboys offense is the personnel that Denver has, not in the front 7. A lot of people are talking about the front 7, which played a great game. But the key is the back end of that defense. Those 3 corners are what allowed the Denver Broncos to exploit the Cowboys offense. We're talking about Pro Bowl caliber corners like Aqib Talib, Roby, and Harris. Denver, in a nutshell, basically said, we're going to commit everyone to stopping the run, stopping Zeke, plugging all the holes, filling all the gaps immediately, jumping on them. And we're just going to let those 3 cover Dez Bryant, Cole Beasley, and Terrence Williams one-on-one. And they did a great job of blanketing those receivers. They forced not Ezekiel Elliott, but Dak Prescott to have to fit those balls into tight windows to those wide receivers and for them to come down with it. And in the end, they just were not able to convert. They couldn't beat them without the running game being there as a threat to that defense. And the Cowboys never got the running game, going in this game. Now, am I concerned? No, because most teams don't have the personnel the Denver Broncos have. So everybody's talking about, well, now there's a blueprint out there to beat the Cowboys. Look, you can have a blueprint, but if you don't have the builders, you don't have the construction workers, you're not going to get anything built. You can have the plans. Now you need someone to build it. The Denver Broncos are one of the select few teams that have those construction workers, and that's in the secondary. So look, I think Dallas is going to bounce back. But one of the players that's in the national media right now being questioned, just being kind of just picked at left and right, is Dez Bryant. So many questions going on about Dez Bryant. Is he a player that's in decline? Is he still a viable number 1 wide receiver? And perhaps the weirdest question of all, but maybe the most appropriate, is Dez overpaid? Let's take a look at all those questions. He's the 8th highest paid wide receiver in the league. Now, I can probably make a case he's about the 8th best wide receiver in the league. Again, that's a story or a problem for another day. But I just want to first address, is Dez Bryant in decline? You take a look at his stats from 2012 to 2014. He has the stats that can hang with the best of them. I mean, look, 2012, let me read off the stat line. 92 receptions, 1,382 yards, and 12 TDs. In 2013, 93 receptions, 1,233 yards to go along with 13 TDs. 2014, his big year, 88 receptions, you gotta like that number, and 1,320 yards to go along with 16 touchdowns. Now, in all 3 of those seasons, 16 games played. He played every single game for those 3 seasons. Then he signs that big $70 million 5-year contract, so he's getting $14 million a year. And in 2015, he got hurt right away. First game of the season, he had a foot injury. He only ended up playing in 9 games that season, and he wasn't healthy in any of those games outside of that first game before he hurt his foot. He finished the year with 31 receptions, 401 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But again, he was hobbled. He was playing on one foot. Then in 2016, 50 receptions, 796 yards, 8 touchdowns, and he played in 13 games. He had a knee injury that kept him out for a few games there, and he was kind of hobbled for maybe a game or two after that where it didn't look like Dez was at full strength. And I was beginning to have my doubts. I was beginning to say, you know what, maybe the Cowboys, maybe they should look into trading Dez Bryant if they could get, a considerable haul for him. But then the playoff game happened, and he had a big, big game. And I thought, okay, we got to give Dez another year. But make no mistake, I am not just a pure Cowboys homer. I've been tough on Dez. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. But like I said on last week's show, he's on watch. He is on watch for me. I think all this criticism of Dez Bryant and all these questions that are being thrown his way, I think they're legitimate. Look, he's definitely not a top 5 wide receiver. He's arguably top 10 with some of the performances that he's had so far this season where he's healthy. Make no mistake, he's healthy unless he's hiding something, I don't know about or the national media or even the local media knows about. We would know. Haven't heard anything there. So he has no excuse. Look, Dez faces Patrick Peterson on Monday Night Football. So he's got another big test. He's probably facing the 3 best corners he's going to face all year long. But he needs a statement game. He really needs to make a statement that he's a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. He can make plays on some of the best DBs in this game and that he's not overpaid and he deserves that $70 million contract he's getting. Because if not, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he has another bad season. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dez Bryant in another uniform, I'd say 2 seasons from now, if this continues. But again, I want to give Dez that benefit, but come on, Dez. It's time to step up. Cowboys Nation, we need you. We can't be getting our asses kicked like we got our ass kicked on Sunday. And a big part of that is we need you to be the superstar you were back in 2014, 13, and 12. Look, we all know the difference. Romo ain't there no more. Dak and him, they don't have that same rapport, but no more excuses. You've got your money. Now it's time to produce. Dez, show that you're the certain wide receiver that it doesn't matter what quarterback's throwing him the ball, you're going to come down and make plays. So keeping it in the NFC East, the Giants, they're 0-2. A lot of people are asking, are the Giants still a playoff contender in the NFC? And right now I'm going to say yes, but that's just because I have a lot of faith in that Giants defense. And I don't believe the offense is quite as bad as it's looked these last 2 seasons. If you remember, before the season started, I was the guy saying, pump the brakes on the New York Giants. There are a lot of holes on this offense. The offensive line, I said the left tackle and the right tackle were questionable. Well, they're looking just a little bit worse than questionable. And I said that running game was questionable as well. And so far, that running game has failed to show up. So the questions are legitimate. This offense has to get better. It definitely can't get any worse. But that defense, man, when you talk about that defense, you're talking about some of the best. I have mad respect for that New York Giants defense. So if this offense can even get to mediocre, we're talking about a playoff contender here. Another question being asked around the league, Kareem Hunt. Everybody's like, is he the best rookie running back we've seen, in the last few years, the way he's coming out? Now, look, we had Ezekiel Elliott last year. It's going to be hard to top that kind of a rookie year. But as far as the running backs this year, you have Leonard Fournette out of LSU. He had a great game in week 1, but he didn't look too hot in week 2. But you had Dalvin Cook. I mean, he balled out on that first Monday night game for the Minnesota Vikings, played well in the second game. He's right behind a player like Hunt. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, who, really hasn't busted out onto the scene quite yet. But in college, man, this guy was dangerous. I'm a Pac-12 guy, watched a lot of Pac-12 games. Christian McCaffrey, I think he's the real deal. But, it's week 2. It's early. But right now, Kareem Hunt is definitely making the biggest impact on his team in this season. So let's keep it in the AFC West. Does anybody out there doubt that this division is going to send 3 teams into the playoffs? Because I sure don't. After the way the Denver Broncos played defense this weekend, I can't doubt that they're going to win 9 or 10 games easy, and that should be enough to get into the playoffs. And then you have the Kansas City Chiefs. They're a model of consistency under Andy Reid. You can pretty much just pencil them in right now, and it's very hard to see the Oakland Raiders somehow missing the playoffs unless injuries hit them like they're hitting the San Diego Chargers. The San Diego Chargers have been injury plagued for years and years now. I think it's just a bit of bad luck. They are a competitive team, and if they can just figure out how to win some games, they could make some noise as well. So I don't see how the AFC West doesn't send, I shouldn't say all 3, but at least 3 teams into the playoffs this season. But keeping it in the AFC West, there's a big matchup between those same Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to push the upset alert on that one. Everybody's riding high on KC right now. They just smoked the Patriots, pretty much smoked the Philadelphia Eagles. They kind of came back at the end, but they had that game under control pretty much the entire way. But the Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, they're division rivals. They play each other really tough. And I think if the Chargers can just somehow learn how to win a close game, they might give the Chiefs an upset. Just something to look for. Just remember I said that. So let's just talk about some of these teams. The Chargers are 0-2. The Saints are 0-2. Another divisional game. They're playing the Carolina Panthers, who are 2-0. Now, I think the Carolina Panthers are sort of fraudulent as a 2-0 team. I'm not impressed with any of the victories so far. They haven't looked very good in their wins. And the Saints, even though they're 0-2, look, who did they lose to? The New England Patriots? I mean, you can't blame them for losing to the New England Patriots. All right, you fantasy football owners, it's time for players to watch. This might just help you to win that game this weekend in your fantasy league. Now, I'm not even going to get to Sam Bradford because he's out, so definitely he's sitting. He's got a knee injury. Air hurt him again. This is Sam Bradford. He flashes, he plays good, he gets you excited, and then air hurts him, and he's out with the knee injury. And he doesn't know when he's coming back, so he's sitting. Don't be surprised if it happens again. This is Sam Bradford we're talking about. But some players that you might want to think about sitting if you have them on your team. I think Mike Evans is having a tough matchup this weekend because he's going up against Xavier Rhodes from the Minnesota Vikings, and he's one of the best cornerbacks you're probably not hearing about. He's shut down some very good wide receivers, even just as recent as this season. He played AB this weekend, pretty much shut him down after AB had a big game in week 1. Lots of yards, moved the ball, but AB really wasn't able to get anywhere on Xavier Rhodes. So Mike Evans, he's a big-time wide receiver, but he's got a tough matchup this weekend. Now, another player to watch out for, I don't know if you want to sit him if you have somebody decent behind him, DeAndre Hopkins. He's playing the Patriots, and you know what the Patriots and Bill Belichick do. They take your biggest weapon, and they make him a non-factor, and they make everybody else step up to beat you. And look, with Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback, they don't have that same rapport that Savage and Hopkins have. So Hopkins might take a little dip in production, at least for the next couple of weeks. Another player that I might just think about sitting is LaShawn McCoy. Now, I would never, ever suggest sitting LaShawn McCoy when he's healthy. But he is going up against that Denver defense, and you guys saw what they did to Ezekiel Elliott. No good. When they hold Ezekiel Elliott to under 10 yards, they can pretty much do that to the best of them. I'm not saying they're going to play that same strategy to the Bills. I'm sure they're going to let them run a little bit more, but don't expect Shady McCoy to be running for 100 yards on this defense. In fact, I wouldn't expect him to run for 50. Now, players that you might want to play, J.J. Nelson, wide receiver from the Arizona Cardinals. He has 7 touchdowns in his last 7 games, and he's going up against a Cowboys secondary that has just been decimated by injuries. You got the rookie Jordan Lewis. He's lining up at one spot. Second-year player in Anthony Brown. He's allowed a couple of big plays already this season. Byron Jones is suffering from a groin injury. He's the safety that, usually helps, cover the top of that defense, but he's moving around a whole lot slower these last couple games. So a speedster like JJ just might get open for a touchdown because Carson Palmer likes to throw those bombs. Also, look at wide receiver Devin Funchess from the Carolina Panthers. With Greg Olsen going down, they're going to need a number one target, and Funchess looks to be the next man up there. Another player from that Dallas-Arizona game on Monday night, Terrence Williams. Terrence Williams is going to be going up against the weak spot on that defense. Dez is going to draw Peterson. Peterson usually travels with the best wide receiver on the squad, so look for the Cowboys to try to get Terrence Williams involved because Dez hasn't been able to step up. But when Terrence Williams has a favorable matchup, he always has a big game. This coming from a Cowboys fan. I watch them all. So those are some players to look out for as far as players to watch, and hopefully they help you guys in your fantasy matchups this weekend. All right, let's wrap this podcast up with some previews and predictions. Let's take a look at each of this week's games and see who can cover these point spreads and who could win outright. So the Thursday night football game, you have the Los Angeles Rams going up to San Francisco to play the Niners. The Rams are minus 2.5 points. You know what? This is a game I'd stay away from as far as betting goes. These teams are division rivals, two bad teams. Who knows what can happen? Because San Francisco's at home, I give them a chance to win this game outright. So you might want to take the risk and go Frisco. But LA, they're so up and down. And if they have a decent game, I'd expect for them to beat the San Francisco 49ers and cover as well. Then, moving on to Sunday, you have the Baltimore Ravens -4 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe that's a London game, so no true home team here. But Jacksonville has played in London before, so they're used to it. They're used to the time change. They're used to the travel. I'm sure they're used to the hotel or the hotels around there. So that should give them a slight advantage. I'm not too impressed with Baltimore, even though they're 2-0. But at this point, Baltimore just looks to be on a roll. I'd go with Baltimore to cover that spread. Denver Broncos -3 at Buffalo. Denver's going to cover. Just go with Denver. You got the New Orleans Saints going to Carolina. Carolina's -6. I think it's possible that the Saints win outright here. Look, this is a division rivalry. And Sean Payton, for all the crap that everybody's been giving him, which I personally think he might just, I think his leash has been too long lately. But he knows how to attack this Carolina defense, and I expect him to do so successfully. He'll probably win, and he'll definitely cover. Now, Pittsburgh -7.5 at Chicago. I don't like giving any team more than a touchdown, so I might just go with Chicago here. Here's one that you don't hear every day. The Cleveland Browns are favored, guys. The Cleveland Browns are favored by 1.5 points going to Indianapolis. So the Cleveland Browns are on the road, and they're favored. Damn, how bad are the Colts? Bad. Cleveland to cover. Atlanta Falcons -3 at Detroit. Look, I love the way Matthew Stafford plays quarterback, but the Atlanta Falcons are on another level. Still, I think this can be a close game. It's one I wouldn't touch, but you know what? I expect the Falcons to cover that spread. Now you have the Tampa Bay Bucks at the Minnesota Vikings. There has been no line set yet. You know what? I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a legitimate shot of blowing this team out. Sam Bradford's not playing. I expect the defense to keep it close for a while, but if Tampa Bay can get that running game going, I think Tampa's going to come away with the win. The Houston Texans are going to New England. New England is -13. That is a lot of points. A lot of points. But if any team's going to cover, it's going to be the New England Patriots. They covered a spread like this in last year's playoff match, so I really can't doubt that. Then you have the Miami Dolphins -6 at the New York Jets. You know what? New York's got to come and play one of these games. 6 points is a lot. You got Jay Cutler on the other side. I'm going to take New York and the 6. New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are -6. Whenever it's a division rivalry, I don't like to give up any more than 3 points, and I'm not going to do so again here. Then you have the Seattle Seahawks at the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are -3. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans to cover here. Seattle doesn't travel well, And Tennessee, I think it's that time that they establish that they're a legitimate playoff contender here. You have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are -9. But you know what? Coming off that loss, I think Green Bay's got to stick it to somebody. So why not the Bengals? I'm going to say, screw it. The Green Bay Packers are going to cover that 9. The Kansas City Chiefs -3 at the LA Chargers. Give me the Chargers and give me the 3 points. Division rivalry. The Chargers are always losing close games. So if they lose, they're not going to lose by more than a field goal. That's for sure. Then you got the Oakland Raiders at the Washington Redskins. Oakland's -3. Man, if Kirk Cousins brings his A game, they're at home. I could see them pulling an upset. But I don't know. This one's a real tough game. I'd probably stay away from it. I think Oakland should win, but it's a teaser. It's a bit of a teaser here. You know what? I'd go with Oakland to cover, but just don't be surprised if Washington doesn't. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys -3 at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I might be a bit biased, but I expect Dallas to come back strong after that loss. They got their asses handed to them. I think they're going to destroy the Arizona Cardinals. But that's just my opinion. I'm a Cowboys fan. Let it be known. I'm not hiding that fact. So that wraps up Week 3 in the NFL. Guys, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Please check us out for the Week 4 NFL podcast next week. Till then, I'm Philip Enriquez. This is the Say What You Like Sports Podcast. Peace out.